Hello everybody, thanks so much for joining me today for Kineo's Totara office hours. Today what we are going to be talking about is making those completion reports graphical. So graphical reports has kind of been a buzzword humming around us for a while, but nobody really knows how to use them very well. So we've kind of played around. What we have found is that some of the easier ones to turn into graphical reports and the ones that make the most sense are going to be those revolving around your graphical reports. So pulling in that course completion report, pulling in that program completion report, even certification completion reports. My two personal favorites are doing the sum of users complete, not complete, and in progress, and then also using percentages. So we'll take a look at two different reports. We're going to look at a bar graph and then also a pie chart and kind of take a look at how you might set those up and how those things function and work. So that's what we're looking at today. A little bit about myself. My name is Taylor Craig. I'm a platforms consultant here at Kineo. My job includes helping our implementation team onboard and train any new or even existing clients, making sure that you guys are up and running and comfortable with your solution. So that's my primary goal and primary part of my position. A little bit about office hours for those of you who maybe haven't joined us before. We've got quite a few people here today I'm excited to see. And so some of you are names I've not seen before. A little bit about what we do in office hours. I have about a 15-minute spiel over something. Today we're talking about making completion reports graphical. We talk about anything Totara. So if you have any ideas, suggestions, anything that you would like me to talk about, please, please, please go back to that email where you got the link to register for this. And at the bottom of that email, there's a link to send me ideas. So anything that you want to see or something you feel like I haven't covered enough or you want to see it again, just let me know. And we will add it to the list. So it does get added to that list. So we do about a 15-minute feature presentation. That 15-minute feature presentation is posted to YouTube for your future referral. You can pass it along to whoever. And it's open to anybody to see that. However, we do also have 45 minutes of open floor discussion. Bring me any questions that you have, guys. We want to hear them. We want to know what you've got. So ask me anything. If I can't answer it, I'll hunt somebody down and we'll find the answer, and I'll follow up with you in a support case. Now, that 45 minutes, that is only open to clients, so we don't post that to YouTube. But it's basically 45 minutes of free training. Come learn from your peers, come learn from our other clients, and you just might learn something. So please feel free to join us for that. All right, let's get right to it. Instead of boring you with PowerPoint slides, let's jump in and actually take a look at some stuff. Helps if I have the right screen pulled up. There we go. All right, so the first one I want to look at, and I'm going to zoom in. Another thing that I want to focus on pretty heavily today is I want to focus on filters as well. Filters and really thinking about those content and access tabs and how we can make these work for us. And I want to show you how these graphs are going to change based on the data that you're pulling in filters. They're going to change based on who you're putting in the content tab and who you're giving access to it. So keep that in mind. This graph is going to change. So this particular one, it is pulling the sum of complete, some in progress, and some who are not complete. This is a course completion report. Down one of our axes here, we have our names of our courses. Across the bottom are the number of people or the unique count of how many people are in there. So what I used is I used a count unique values of user ID numbers. So inside of the system, every user has what we call a user ID number, and that's just something that's placed into the database, so every single person is unique in that aspect. We like to use things that are unique because I could potentially have 2, 3, 4 John Smiths in my LMS, and so that's not going to give me accurate data. I want to know how all 4 John Smiths are doing, where they are inside of that process. So that's why we're using a user ID number. Another thing that you could potentially pull off of would be a username, because your usernames also have to be unique. So username is also a really good way to go there. But typically that ID number, that's going to be the one to use. When we get in and we actually take a look at the report, I'll show you which ID number to pull from, because there may be more than one. in your site, depending on what you're doing, and if you're doing custom profile fields, things like that, you may have an additional one. I also want to know the course name. That's also a bit of data that's important to me because I need to know which courses people are complete and not complete. So we have to include that information. And then we have the sum. So basically, what is my total? How many people are in here? Now, I want to point something out here. We want to make sure our numbers add up. So let's go down here. We're going to pick small numbers so that I can do math. So we're going to look at this new employee onboarding one. Now, you're going to notice that our total is a 15. Over here, you're going to see that we have a 10, 2, and 5. That doesn't add up to 15, now does it? That adds up to 17. Now, the reason I'm okay with those numbers, and the reason that doesn't bother me, is because my sum is not complete and my sum is in progress. That means that 2 out of these total 5 that are not complete are still in progress. Okay, so these 2 numbers kind of count the same. The 2 numbers that we're adding up here are going to be some that are complete and some that aren't complete, right? So that's really our major number that we're doing there, but we see that 2 of those folks are still in progress. Okay, so for those of the other ones who maybe are not complete, those other 3 people, you're probably wondering, okay, but where do they fit in? They maybe just haven't started. And we don't have that column in here, but there is a column called not yet started that you could potentially add in, and I bet you that one would probably have a 3 in it. Okay, so just to kind of keep that in mind, what's happening there, those folks are going to show up as not yet started if they are enrolled in the course but haven't done anything. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, let's take a look at our filters and see how this graphical report changes based on what I filter. So I can filter based on just a course name. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to grab my new employee onboarding. I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to copy and paste. We're going to search. Okay, now you're going to notice that that is a significant change in the way this graph looks because it's just pulling back just the data for that course. So the total graph changes. So if you think about this in the terms of your content and your access tab, I may have somebody who only needs to see potential people in their organization. So their graph is going to look different than your graph, potentially, but it would be the same exact report. You're already familiar with how these reports function when we talk about from that content and access tab point of view. If you're not familiar with that, please go back and look at one of our office hours sessions. I know I've talked about it when we've talked about reporting. I think I specifically did one on the content and access tabs. But it's going to change basically by who's looking at it. Okay? Lots and lots of different filters that you can potentially add in that you can pull from. You can use a combination of filters. You can do all of that good stuff as well. Now, one thing to note about these is you can export them into PDF format. So they do show up kind of pretty and they give you that nice little graphical representation. A lot of people like to create these and then schedule these reports to go out to the higher ups in the company. They get a pretty graphical representation of exactly what's going on in the site without having to see a whole bunch of data, right? So you can do those kinds of things in your LMS as well. Now, one thing that you're probably noticing is, okay, that's great. I see that there's 15 people in here. I see that where they are, but who in the world are those people? Now, this is going to be kind of one of those gotchas, and that gotcha is going to be that it's not going to show up in this report. So you have to have the exact same report, but without the graph, which is possible, and you can absolutely set up. I like to put in parentheses, data, no graph, or something to that effect. And that's going to give me the same exact information. So I'm going to actually search here. We're going to paste the same one. We're going to narrow that data. And so here is the exact same data, but now I'm seeing names. I see the people. I see when they completed it. I see a little more data about those individuals. So you want to make sure that you have both reports if that particular information is important to you. And guys, also don't forget that you do have a block in 2.7 that goes along with this that allows you to place that graphical report anywhere. So you could potentially do a dashboard with a whole bunch of different graphs on it. for individuals there. Let's take a look at kind of how that particular one is set up. So that may be the one that fits the bill for you. That may be exactly what it is that you're looking for. This is based off of a course completion report. Okay, and the ones that I am using, so feel free to take a screenshot of my screen right now if you'd like to. That might help as far as, okay, which ones do I use? In this particular one, I am using user ID number. And again, I want to point out exactly which one it is. It's going to be this one, underneath username, user ID number. You could use username as well. It should give you the same data. And then user ID, this is the one that you don't use. Okay, you're going to use this user ID number. We want to be sure and count unique, because that is going to count every unique instance of a user ID number. Okay, so that's what that's going to pull. We don't want to use comma separated values because that's going to give us a list. There is a time and a place to use comma separated values if you need to list out numbers, the people that are in certain areas, stuff like that. You can absolutely use that, but in this case, we want to count the unique number of individuals. We also need to make sure that we include course name, because that is going to be the data that we're wanting to see. We want to see what those courses are. And then we have is not using the sum aggregation. You might think that you would use count or count unique. This is where it gets a little tricky when we're talking aggregations. We just want a total, so we're going to pull sum. Those are the kind of the easier aggregations to wrap your mind around. They're also the ones that we have found work the best. We've played around with graphical reports quite extensively and found that sum tends to work the best. Okay, for that particular type of report. So this is going to be the same report but based on a percentage. And also it's using a pretty little pie chart. So we're able to see the percentages. Now you're going to notice here that we have 8.47%, but it's showing 66.7. Now this is going to be course completion. It is actually only pulling on the percentage that is complete. You'll see here when we get in and take a look at the settings that we can only build off of one of these columns, either complete, not complete, percentage in progress. So you may potentially need 3 different reports if you're wanting to display that percentage across all 3. Now, one thing to note, so if we take a look at this, I'm going to try to find one that's easy to locate. We'll do health and safety standards. It's a 69.2, so that is going to be this column right here. So if I'm pulling off of this, 69.2, but you'll notice that it's showing 8.79. Okay, that is showing me completions as a total on my entire site. Okay, so all of this adds up to 100% as far as completions are on my entire site and all of the courses that I have that qualify for completions. Okay, so that's where that percentage there is coming from. But then this is the actual breakdown per course. So 69.2% of my 26 individuals who are in this course have completed it. Okay, so that's going to give me the actual percentage of the people in my course. So this is the more of the breakdown. This is the site as a whole. Okay. One thing to note, guys, you can move this key around. There are some additional things that you can do as far as customizing that key. That is going to be in here, located underneath the Performance tab, I believe. Maybe it's Graph. It is under the Graph tab, and I believe it's right here under Custom Settings. If you're looking for more information on that, you can click on this question mark, and then this will take you out to goat1000.com, which is where these graphs are pulling from. It's the software that's being used for that. So if you want to open that up, take a look. There's lots and lots of CSS or PHP that you can pop in there. You can change colors. You can change the background of that of the key so that it's transparent, so that it doesn't do like mine is doing, where you can't see the graph when I move it across it. Okay, so lots of things you can do there. Just wanted to point that out and make you aware. So let's take a look at how this particular one is set up. We're going to look at the columns first. So I have in here, I've got my course name. Again, that's something that's important to me. And then I have is complete, not complete, in progress. And then I'm also pulling off of the user ID number, and I'm still doing that count unique, because that's still going to go in and it's going to tell me how many people are in that course. And then I want to break that down in a percentage. So percentage of people complete, percentage not complete, percentage in progress. So that's going to give me that breakdown. That's where I'm getting that percentage. Now if we take a look at the graph tab, this is kind of where it gets a little, not tricky, but just be aware that this is something that you have when you're using the pie chart. So when you're using the pie chart, you can choose two axes basically to create that pie. I want to do the course name because that's going to be important to me in my situation. And then I'm going to go with percentages complete. Now I could switch this to percentages not complete, and we could save. And I'm just going to jump back on this tab and I'm going to refresh. My chart should change. It should look different. And it does. Okay, and so now it's pulling off of this column here, okay? But again, this up here is completion as a whole throughout the entire site, okay? So keep that in mind. Let's take a look at one more bar graph. This particular one is based on programs. So you do have several different completion reports that are available to you. You've got a course completion report, you have a certification completion report, you have a programs completion report, quite a few different completion reports available to you, and so those particular reports are going to probably be the easiest because it's giving you totals. It's giving you those numbers that are easily calculated into a graph. Okay, again, you can do these drop downs, you can do these different filters, you have the ability to do that. So I see here that I have 230 people that are part of the new employee onboarding program. I have only 8 people who have been working on it, 220 who are not complete. Okay. So same thing we've got going here for our other programs. Just wanted to make you aware and so you could see that. Again, with this particular one, if you want to know who those people are, you would need to have another program completion. Guys, I'm using just the standard setup. So if we want to jump in and take a look really quickly how we might set one of these up from scratch, we can absolutely do that. So I'm going to use our course completion one. We're going to set one up very quickly, and then I will turn the floor over to you guys. I know I've already talked a little bit over my time. So I'm going to go to Site Administration, Reports, Report Builder, Manage Reports. And I've got a bunch in my site. And I'm going to grab that course completion, create the report. So when you're pulling this from core, in your columns, you're going to have a whole bunch of columns that you don't need. So you can remove these very easily. I'm going to take out organization, because in this particular case, I maybe don't care. I'm going to take out the organization. Now you may want to pull completion based on position. I've got another one of those as well, so if that's something that you're wanting to do, you can absolutely do that as well. And I'm just going to change some of these. So I'm going to do, we can do username. We want to leave course name. We're going to use is complete any method, is not complete, is in progress. We're going to add that. I'm going to save just to make sure it keeps all of that. Okay, and then we're going to do count unique, sum. We're going to save that as well. You've got to make sure you save that. Jump over to your graph tab. Make the selection on what you use. We do have several other reports out there. I'm going to choose to do the horizontal bar graph because that's the one we saw. We're going to leave it data series and columns. You can do it in rows, so you can switch it, the orientation, how it stands. And we are going to leave it to, we're going to change this category to course name because that's what we want on our access. And then we want to know this information here. You want to make sure that you include all the information that's needed before you're able to make that work. Okay, your graph is updated. Save those changes. I'm going to right-click, open in a new tab. We're going to view it. Okay. So now we're seeing how that particular report looks once we're complete. All right, guys, so that's just kind of that part of graphical reporting in a nutshell. We found that that's one of the easier ones to work with and easier ones to get them to work. You will know pretty quickly if you have set up a graphical report that the data doesn't make sense or the data doesn't jive, because it will immediately give you an error report, and it'll tell you that the error does not, that the graph won't display. So something to keep in mind, and just play with it until you get comfortable with it and see what you can come up with on your end. I would love to see what you come up with. Thank you again for joining us today. We hope to see you next week, and I am going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you guys. We do have quite a few people in attendance today, and so I want to make sure everybody gets their questions answered. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Marge, I see that you have already raised your hand. And so if you want to, you can post those questions to the question box, and then I will answer them there. Or if you need the microphone, I'd be glad to hand that to you as well.